Welcome everyone to the father and son Caps Precap for the Washington Capitals Ottawa Senators game tomorrow night, March 22nd. I'm not going to go too deep into our last game. We all know it was a bad game. We played maybe the first 5 minutes and then let up the remaining 55. I thought we were going to start playing some playoff hockey when we played the Preds this past weekend, but maybe it's going to take a little bit more to get us in gear, and hopefully this game serves us as a swift kick in the ass to get ourselves in gear to start the postseason. So, tomorrow night we're taking on the Ottawa Senators, who, they're more or less eliminated from the playoffs at this point, but they still got a lot of decent point producers. They've got Hoffman, they got Stone. They've got Mika Zibanejad. They've got, obviously, Erik Karlsson, who's leading the league in assists. They've got Bobby Ryan, who's always scary offensively. So tomorrow night's going to prove as a challenge to the Caps.
Absolutely. I mean, they've got 4 guys over 20 goals. Mike Hoffman leading the way, I think, with 26 goals. Their point producer is, of course, Erik Karlsson, leading their team in points. And they also have somebody else on that team that's worth noting, and that's Alex Chason, who right now his face-off win percentage is about 75%. So this is a team, they're about 7 points out of a wild card spot, so they're kind of still in it. They're still fighting for something. The thing that concerned me about the Pens game is that, although the game really didn't mean that much in terms of the standings, the Capitals should have been able to get up for that game and play much better than they did. Like you said, they did come out playing very hard the first 5 minutes or so. After that, it seemed to be very undisciplined hockey, maybe too cutesy at times. I don't think Barry Trotz was too happy. He said he's not letting anybody off of the hook. That was a little bit of a concern, but, I think sometimes games like these, like you said, it's a swift kick in the ass, and it gets you going. I think you need this adversity sometimes. It's something, these games to keep you a little grounded. So I don't think necessarily that the game yesterday was a bad thing. I think maybe it'll be a motivator for this team going forward.
Yeah, definitely. And it was definitely hurtful for the fans to watch, because you never want to see your team just get completely blown out by the rival squad. But it could prove to be something good, and hopefully it'll get our guys' heads in the game. We've got guys that are doing really well right now. I mean, case in point, Andre Burakovsky. He's averaging almost a point a game for the last almost 30. He's playing very well. We've got guys that maybe could be producing more. Alex Ovechkin, he's kind of slowed down. Braden Holtby didn't have a great night, but we kind of let him hang out to dry. Nicholas Backstrom, yeah, he had a multi-point night a couple nights ago, but I'm not seeing like the same flashy Backstrom that I'm used to seeing. So maybe they'll start picking it up, but we've also got other guys picking up the slack. Obviously, Kuznetsov has 73 points. He's leading the team. He's got just as many points as Erik Karlsson does right now.
He was -4 against the Penguins. And,
he was.
But he's been playing so well for so long. Great game against the Predators. Just unbelievable passes. But you turn around, you have maybe a little bit of a tough game. I really can't attribute anything directly to him. He just happened to be on the ice some of this time. I don't think he played a great game. But yeah, I think this is the type of, if I'm Ottawa, I'm a little bit nervous coming off a loss like that. This team's going to be motivated to kind of get out of the gate and have a big game. Ottawa, again, penalty kill and their power play near the bottom of the league.
Yeah.
One of the top 5 scoring teams in the league, but also one of the bottom 3 or 4 when it comes to goals against. So, this is a team that can be scored on. This is a team that we can take advantage of on the special teams. Got to play disciplined hockey, stay out of the box, get your power plays, and capitalize on them. Our power play looked abysmal last night.
It was all, we couldn't set anything up. The Penguins are clearing everything that we brought in. But yeah, no, that's one thing that's definitely going to make or break this game tomorrow night is the special teams. And in the past for the Ottawa Senators, at least for the month of March, special teams have been either their make or break for the game. They've either blown the team out of the water, or they've gotten blown out themselves. Their last game came on Saturday against the Montreal Canadiens. They won 5-0, and their penalty kill was spectacular. And yeah, they're playing the Canadiens, who are having a tough time themselves, but they got 3 shorthanded goals that game. So they're coming into this game with a full head of steam. They're clinging on to that thin thread of hope that they could still make the playoffs and get that second wild card spot. But they're going to come out swinging, and like you said, they've got a lot of goal scorers. They've got a lot of big point producers, probably more so than most other teams, if not any other team in the league. Got like I mentioned at the beginning of the video.
Well, and I think a lot of teams They they can get motivated for a game against the Caps. The Caps are number one team in the league, and if you knock them off, it's big. It's big for your fans. It's big for your locker room. So a lot of teams when they play against the Caps, they're already in playoff mode. I think for the most part, and the Caps maybe not necessarily. These games don't quite mean as much, although we haven't really clinched the East yet. The President's Trophy, I don't even want to talk about. We saw what happened in 2010 with that. But I think that certainly there are some teams out there still grinding out for a playoff spot, trying to hold on to that thread, like you said, and they're going to bring it.
Yeah, definitely. I think one good point that you brought up is that the President's Trophy, it doesn't really matter. Whatever happens in the season, it doesn't matter at all during the playoffs. You could have an 8 seed upset a 1 seed very, very easily, and we saw that plenty of times. We saw that back in 2010. We saw that when the Kings won the Cup. They were coming in, they were the underdogs, and they had 4 losses the entire playoffs. So it's not something that you want to just say, oh, look, like we're the best team in the league. We got like 120 odd points, so like we're gonna coast through the playoffs. That's not how it is. And in fact, that's exactly what Brooks Orpik told a reporter on the NHL website. He said, once the regular season's over, it's over. The playoffs are a completely different beast. Teams
go back to 0-0.
Yep, teams play completely different hockey, and that's what we need to start doing, because we're just, all the other teams are starting to change their rate of play. They're picking it up, and it looks like we've just been coasting since the All-Star break.
Well, I think there are enough guys still around from that 2010 year that know the pain of winning the President's Trophy and getting knocked out the first round. And I think that certainly they're going to be reminded of that all the time. The press isn't giving them a pass. The fans are not giving them a pass, as they head into the postseason. So I think everyone knows what's at stake here and what the regular season and this wind down to the playoffs really means. So, I think that they're going to. By the way, they're going to get John Carlson back. It looks like next week against New Jersey, our number one defenseman. I think it's a good time to get him back, get him into the mix, get him enough games as we head down the stretch.
Yeah, that means we don't have to play Mike Weber, and we can really just put him out when we need him, because he completely lost his cool last game. I don't really want to talk about that, but that was just not good.
No hearing for Mike Weber. The Ovechkin hit. There was there was some whining about the Ovechkin hit. I'm going to tell you right now, I had a Pens fan come up to me today at my office, and he said, something's got to be done about Ovechkin. He's dirty. And I told him, I said, he's not dirty. The guy, he throws heavy hits. And that was a penalty last night, but he's not dirty. And so I challenged him, what is dirty about it? And he just shakes his head saying, well, he throws these dirty hits all the time. And so I told him, I said, I think you're just jealous because our superstar's just running over your guys. So I'm sick and damn tired of hearing these Pens fans whine about the Ovechkin and saying he's dirty. He's not dirty, all right? He plays a clean game. Yeah, he hits, he throws the body. And, if they can't take it, go play badminton.
Anyway, I think we have a good bit of optimism going into tomorrow's game. Despite our last loss, if we win, even if we get a point, I believe we clinch the East. We're just one step closer to clinching the President's Trophy, which, even though we stayed before, doesn't really mean much. It's a pretty good morale booster for the team, I believe.
This team has not lost 2 in a row. They just don't do it this year.
Yeah, they've gotten a loss and an overtime loss in a row, but no two
regulation.
Exactly,
that's correct.
And I think we've played well against the Sens earlier this season. One of our games we won 2-1, and the other game we won 7-1. So we don't really give up a lot of goals against them, and we really light up Craig Anderson. And I don't think Andrew Hammond's playing tomorrow night. I have to believe it's Craig Anderson. Hammond hasn't been really living up to his hype that he built up last season when he pretty much drove drove the Senators into the playoffs in early February to mid-April. But, both the goalies, they're not really doing that spectacular this year. Their numbers are remarkably average. Craig Anderson, a superstar goalie in the past, has just, not been performing up to snuff. But, maybe that's because the team in front of him has a lot of offensive power but not a lot of defense. So that's the type of team that the Caps need to play against. I think that would be good practice for us.
Who do you think starts in net for the Caps tomorrow?
I have to believe that it's Braden Holtby, even though we had to pull him last game. I don't believe that a lot of those goals were his fault. We just were in awful position a lot of the game. We just kind of let him out to dry, and it was just I don't believe it's his fault. And I really don't believe a lot of our losses were his fault. There were a couple faulty saves or faulty shots that could have been saves here and there, but
a couple he'd like to head back. I'll tell you, Barry Trotz has a pattern that in a game like this, he'll go right back to his guy. You're my guy. I'm going right back with you. I think he goes back with Holtby tomorrow night. I look for Holtby to play a very strong game.
Yeah, and you have to keep your goalie's mental game strong. You don't want to get into his head, and I believe that if you start setting your starting goalie for a while when he's completely healthy, that starts to get into his head. And playing goaltender in the NHL is probably one of the most mental positions that you could have, like in any sport or even any profession. Pretty much the entire game relies on you. I've read Clint Malarchuk's book. It's a very strenuous game for goalies, especially on the mind. So it's something we need to keep his head clear. And he's a pretty zen guy to begin with. He knows how to clear his head. He has his routines before and after the game. So I'm not too terribly worried about him, but it's something that we do need to take care of.
I agree. In fact, if we did not have a rough patch heading up to the playoffs, I'd be more concerned.
Absolutely. So I'm going to come into tomorrow's game with a good bit of optimism. I think the Caps are going to win, and it's going to be a big win for us. I think it's going to be 5-2. Hopefully we're lighting up the Sens the way other teams have been lighting them up. But anything could happen, and I'm going to guess that... I'm going to guess that Daniel Winnick gets the game winner. He doesn't score a lot of goals, but he's been producing pretty well for us lately.
It's funny. I was going to predict 5-2 as well, so I'm going to stick with it. So we'll predict the same score, and I'll win. I think that Kuzi bounces back, gets 2 points. I predict that Ovi will score again. He's going to get on track at some point in time, and I predict that Holtby plays fairly well.
All right. Well, thanks for tuning in with us, and until next time,
let's go Caps!